Hi there, my California history class. It's Mrs. Chappie. Happy Easter. Today is Easter when I'm recording this. I hope you guys have had a nice day with your families. Let's see, what did my family do today? We had breakfast. We had a big brunch of Eggs Benedict, which is my college daughter's favorite food. So we enjoyed that. We have a turkey in the oven right now. We're going to have a Easter dinner in a little bit, and my kids are off playing video games, and my husband is watching a recorded baseball game. So weird to see him watching recorded old baseball games, but he loves baseball. So that's something fun for him to do on Easter. And I thought I would record my this week's California history video, which is fun for me to do. So everybody's doing something they like in the Chappie family right now on Easter. So this video is going to be on the shorter side because I have a fun project planned for this week. If we were together in class, we would be studying the connection of communication to California. That's what our topic would be. That's what's in the syllabus. And we would be playing a game with whistles and Morse code and talking about that. So I am going to try to do that on Zoom this week. So I hope that you guys can join me on Thursday because it should be, I hope, a fun class. We'll see. We're just trying to get through this and living in the coronavirus quarantine world. So I appreciate you guys hanging in there and still trying to learn about history and still meeting with me on Zoom. So I'm going to go ahead and record the little lesson that we will also be talking about on Thursday. So you will hopefully see this. I know I talked to Grace, and Grace is like, yeah, Mrs. Chappie, I watched the video, and then she came to class, and that made me super happy. So I'm hoping you guys do that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, which is how we do this. I then open up my spiffy PowerPoint, and then I can talk to you and show you some maps and some pictures, and hopefully it makes it a little more interesting for you. Of course, I'll have some Mr. Betts videos linked below, so I hope you will watch those as well. I'm not going to embed them in this video just because I know the quality is so much better if you go straight to YouTube and watch them yourself. But make sure you check them out. Mr. Betts is this amazing teacher. You guys all have probably heard about him lots of times from me. We watch his videos a lot, particularly in US history. But he is a high school teacher actually in New York. And so I've been thinking about him a lot lately because there's a lot of coronavirus in New York, and I'm sure his school is closed too. And so he's probably teaching remotely just like us. So teachers all over the country doing that. So what are we going to be talking about today, guys? Today we're going to be talking about that link connecting the East to the West, specifically the Pony Express and Telegraph. So what I'd be telling you about is reminding you that California was super far away, super far cut off from the cities on the east. And so it took the information, the news, a long time to get there. And it took good stuff that people wanted to buy and use and then maybe resell months to get there. It could take them up to 6 months if it was coming by ship, even sometimes longer if it was going by stagecoach or by wagon to get out. So information took a long time. If you were in California and you wrote a letter back home to someone on the East Coast and you wanted them to answer an important question, and you were waiting for a letter to come back, it could take a year. By the time you wrote a letter, it got all the way back to the East Coast. Whoever you wrote the letter opened it up, and then they had to have an answer. It could take a whole year. So communication, the way people talk, that's what communication is, and share information, was super, super slow. So the only way they originally could do it was by ship or by wagon. So it took a long time. Last night, this is pretty funny because of the quarantine, my daughter's home. I've told you guys that. And it was her 21st birthday. And so that was a big deal for her. And so she wanted to talk with her friends. We just Zoomed. All of her friends were on the television. I connected the laptop to the television. Everyone was able to communicate right away. There wasn't this long delay. When California was first becoming a state, it obviously wasn't like that. It took a long, long time. So they started developing different routes to share information. They initially going really slow on the wagon trains, they created an overland mail route that allowed messages mail to go back and forth through usually on a stagecoach. A stage was a lot faster than a stagecoach was a lot faster than a wagon that was traveling. And so that was faster. And then they came up with an even faster route, a faster way called the Pony Express, where horses would ride as fast as they could, usually with teenage boys riding the horses full speed ahead until the horse was so tired, and then they would hit a station and trade horses and get a new fresh horse and ride again. Sometimes get a new fresh rider, ride again. And so that sped things up. This map, you know how much Mrs. Chappie just loves maps, shows the routes that they would pass information from. Particularly here, San Antonio up to Los Angeles was a popular route. It's way down here at the bottom. But they had different names for the things, the routes that they would take, like the Old Spanish Trail or the Atlantic Pacific route or the Upper Immigrant Trail, which I think is really funny. The Upper Immigrant Trail is way down south here in Texas. When I first remember learning about the Upper Immigrant Trail, I was young and I figured it was somewhere way, way, way up here, maybe like up in South Dakota or something, and clearly it wasn't. It's in Texas. I think that that's funny when I look at names like that. So this faster mail route was, again, I told you guys a second ago, called the Overland Mail Service. And it would go so much faster, but it would still take about 25 days or so. But you could see here on the Overland Mail Service, we have our stagecoaches and we have our Pony Express riders, and it was faster. Now, at top speed, those Pony Express riders, they could set the record of getting mail there in 10 days. Now, remember, you used to write a letter and then wait for a response, and it could take a year. So now writing a letter and getting it there in 10 days, wow, that was super, super fast. Nothing compared to Zoom, where we could talk and get the information right away. But we see this progression, we see this technology developing. Now, I can't remember if it was Josh or Joe, but one of the students said, Mrs. Chappie, I recognize that. I was just in Wells Fargo and they had that same stagecoach. Yep, that's exactly right. They are remembering the history of California and how California was connected, how it was able to communicate through this stagecoach. And they use that as their kind of their big business logo now. So if you ever go to Wells Fargo Bank, you'll see this stagecoach right there. This gives you a couple of the routes that we talked about. Again, the Pony Express route, we saw a map that had even more, but these were the main ones. Remember, we saw that one down in Texas just a minute ago. I don't know why, I just really like looking at maps. And here is a historic drawing showing that stagecoach coming into town. Now, did the stagecoach ever sometimes bring things other than mail? Sure, occasionally they would have, they would transport people, sometimes some goods. You're not going to get a lot of goods in a stagecoach, obviously, but sometimes something of high value might get transported on the stagecoach. That's why they were robbed sometimes. If you ever studied the Wild Wild West, you'll hear talking about stagecoach robberies. So we saw it go down from months to maybe 25 days to 10 days. And then all of a sudden, this huge invention comes along. You guys have probably heard about it before. The telegraph. A guy named Samuel Morse invented the telegraph. And the very first message he sent went about 40 miles. It went from the Capitol in Washington, D.C. to Baltimore, which is in Maryland. It's outside of Washington, D.C., about 40 miles away. Kind of like maybe going from Placerville to Sacramento, something like that. And a telegraph is electronic signals along a wire. And they're able to get a signal on this wire and communicate. And Morse came up with a code to do that, which we call Morse code. And if you join me on Thursday, that's what we're going to be talking about a lot, is the Morse code, and doing some activities with that and trying to decipher our code and try to give our friends messages on through Morse code. So the first telegraph line went from Washington, D.C. to Baltimore, but it wasn't long until they made one called the transatlantic line. Transatlantic, going from one place to another. So it's going from the east to the west and connecting California. Now, if you've been in Mrs. Chappie's U.S. history class, you should recognize this painting. It's a very famous painting called American Progress. We've talked about it a lot in our class in U.S. history, talking about how the United States spread from the east to the west. Now, this is California history, not U.S. history, but it's the time where we say how the east connected to the west so that California was connected. So in this, California would be over here, and the East Coast would be over here, and we can see ways that California is going to be connected. We have the wagon trains that we talked about. We have the 49ers that we talked about. We have the stagecoach on the overland mail route that we talked about. We have a Pony Express rider probably up there. Can't see him very close, but I bet that's what that is. You have the trains that are going to connect it. And then ultimately, the reason I'm showing you this picture is I want you to see this. This represents that telegraph line, that communication. And you can see it wraps all the way around up there. Now, if you were in California history, you're like, oh yeah, here we go. In the East, we have those industrial factory-based society. In the South down here, we have farm-based living, which is called agrarian. We have the different societies, and then we have this all connected, all moving out west. We have one coast, you can see oceans there, and if you look over here, you have the other coast, oceans here, which would be California, Oregon, Washington, what we're studying in California history. So I just kind of want to wrap it together, particularly if you're some of those kiddos, some of you take both classes from me, which is fun. U.S. history is a much more lecture-based class, whereas California history, we're doing a lot of those buildings. But the last couple of weeks with the coronavirus, we're not building as much. But we tried last week. We had our wagon project that we did, and we're going to have our fun Morse code project coming up. So I told you this was going to be a really short lecture because most of what we are doing this week will be when we meet on Thursday in class and we do our class project together. So it was a short and sweet little PowerPoint, just a little teaching on that communication and tying California into the rest of the country. I think that's all I have for you today. So I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my Easter. I'm going to have my Easter dinner with my family. I live next door to my parents, and we have been social distancing and quarantining for over 21 days, and no one has been next to each other. So this is the first time we're going to have a meal together because no one has been around anybody. So now we can do that. So I'm super excited about that. I hope you guys are having a great or had a great day if this is already, you're watching this and Easter is over. And I will very much looking forward to seeing you on Thursday because I told you before it's my favorite day of the week because I get to see your smiling faces. So take care, stay safe, and I will see you soon until we see each other in real life with this summer when we have our big FLA Yay huge picnic that we're looking forward to doing. So take care, and I will see you guys later. Bye.